entering at Eugene Field?
Yeah.
How can I wait? I just wanted to do that.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, well, it's, we started, because we were down there. It changed over very recently, so I think the students, they just went on spring break, so it's really, it's not getting very much time.
You won't have much time because the ends, things start to get.
Well, spring break now, I'm going to DC for a week, or maybe 10 weeks actually. DC and Austin. Come back when I get it. Sessions in May, but you know, every little bit helps.
But you'll be back next year.
Community partner presentation?
Third grade.
Right. This professor in Colorado years ago wrote a series of 2 books, and one was on quantum and one was on quantum. He does a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh?
Must not have been the physics professor I had at CU Boulder. The book that got me through college physics was The Cartoon Guide to Physics.
Oh, really?
I still have it. Yep. All right.
That's all.
I don't think there's any. No one understands. You just say it's crazy and that's it.
Yeah.
Hey, Anna.
Ann's gonna be teaching in 2 weeks.
Woo! Okay, John, it's all yours. Thank you. The helm is yours. Oh, thank you. Thank
Are
you.
you gonna talk?
I'm going to write those things down.
Yeah, yeah. I think we can go ahead and get started. Hello, this is William Townley from, as you can read, hometown. I asked him if he was native, and he says he's native and educated here and law school here. And so, they've gone through some changes at Hope Works, and we're eager to hear what those changes are.
Thank you all so much for having me. Just a little bit about myself. As was mentioned, my name is William Townley. I'm the development manager over at HopeWorks. So I help oversee the volunteer program, grant writing, help with the finance department. Prior to that, I was a intern here in town for about 6 years. Worked at the New Mexico Center on Long Poverty, as well as Texas Services, representing kiddos. I had an opportunity about a year ago to swing over here and start leadership. So I ended up where I am today. So if you ever have any questions about the volunteer program, foundational supports, any way that we can partner with you all, certainly to have conversations. And so I'm going to be probably keying in more to the presentation here on the screen here. So certainly if you all want to look at that, that's where a lot of my visual will be, less on the board. But just to give you a bit of background for those of you who may not be familiar with Hope Towns, we were initially known as St. Martin's Hospitality Center. So those of you in the area who are familiar with the Stone Soup tradition we had for a long time, or just St. Martin's. We have a lot of community members who still call us St. Martin's. For our new employees, they get kind of confused, but I have to let them know. That's what a lot of us still know us as. But we were founded in 1985. We started off initially as a day shelter, and as we've grown and as we talk a little bit more about our programming, being a day shelter, we certainly use that as an opportunity, as an entry point to serve clients who are unhoused. From there, we've really grown on the ability to provide services beyond just those initial day services at the shelter. And so if we could move to the next slide. Thank you, sir.
So are you on 3rd Street?
Yeah, so we have a large campus on 3rd Street is exactly where the shelter would be with that big blue fence. That's kind of where we think of us. Sorry, I got you moving all over. But yes, we also actually have a campus spot as well on Second and Mountain. That's our administrative center. And more towards Candelaria, we have something that's called Dismas House, which I'll tell you a little bit more about.
Did I skip past too many?
I'll skip a little bit, but if you want, I can sort of go back a little bit.
I'll try.
Thank you.
Oops, going forward.
Oh, I think you're going the other way.
You're going forward.
No, I'll go backwards. No. No, I don't even know how to do this problem. Because I don't have a mouse anymore.
It's quantum physics.
That's right. You try that on your phone.
That I'm gonna disappear.
Oh.
Oh, well.
You did it, guys.
No, I don't have a computer like this, so.
We had somebody trying to get in,
No,
just to confuse matters a little more.
Let him see if he can.
yeah. What are you doing?
Oh,
that, oh,
Oh, yeah. No, oh,
okay. Before I hit this. Okay,
Like you showed you.
yeah, thank you,
it might be finicky, so I apologize in advance.
thank you.
So this part, we definitely want to discuss, there's a lot of discussion about diversity, equity, inclusion in a number of different forms. What it means to us in terms of our work is there's a lot of known systemic barriers in the state of New Mexico to our populations. And what we really try to focus on when we're thinking about programming, thinking about grants, thinking about community partners, we try to acknowledge and address those barriers. We are a minority majority state. There are obviously issues with housing in terms of units and available space for individuals. So we try not to work in a vacuum. So that's really the point of this. And if you ever go to our website, it's kind of blocked with the screens right here, but we have a statement of intense hope. That's something that we wrote a few years ago, just talking about love and trying to heal homelessness through a whole person sort of centric mindset is how we really sort of framed the work that we do.
We got somebody trying to get in.
Oh,
Where? Oh,
I think there may be someone in the waiting rooms.
no. You can't read it though, I got it up there.
go back to slide.
Yep, hang on. Good luck. Do I want to do this slide over there, right? We want to blow the whole thing.
Yeah.
There.
So this is a little bit more just about sort of the black and white background of the work we do. So that organizational chart, if you have incredible vision at the bottom, says 2022. So organizational chart. The point being that we wanted to show you, and if you can kind of visualize there on the right on those gray squares, that was all behavioral health. So when you think of HopeWorks, you probably think of the day shelters as our main driver. But as you can see, behavioral health takes almost 50% of our roster, essentially. There, then on the left is our housing. That's a little bit more of the 2/3 there on the left. And then down the center is our administration, including development, which is where I would be under. So that kind of gives you an idea of how much of our work goes beyond just the day shelter. A lot of our funding when it comes to state and federal grants are through partnerships in housing, as well as medical service provision agreements. So certainly a lot of the way that we're going to keep the lights on and keep things funded is through those collaborations and partnerships. Something else I wanted to note is a big thing about our leadership is people with lived experience. Certainly what we've recently started is the Climate Advisory Board, which I want to mention with more detail, but through our leadership, we have a number of individuals who either have experienced homelessness or they have individuals with family members who've experienced homelessness as well. One story our UC likes to share is coming home. He was an armed veteran of the Coast Guard, and he has issues with trying to get housing when he came back from service. So he himself has lived experience. A lot of our leadership wants to inform what they've seen to the work we've done. Excuse me. I'll say something. One thing that we did recently start last year was the client advisory board. That is actually something where we actually have clients comprise an 8-member board, and we meet monthly to learn about the services that we're doing, learn about what we could do better, and that has actually been really helpful in trying to improve the services that we offer to our clients as well. A few other notes, we have about $9 million is our budget right now. Employee numbers is about mid 70s. So those numbers have changed as well. Do you have any questions about this slide? So we can move on to the next one. If you want to go the other way. Perfect. So this, I think, will give you a better rundown of all the work we do just day to day. When it comes to the day shelter, that is, I think, what people most think of. 5,000 people annually use our shelter, serve something like 80,000 meals a year. Within that shelter, we have mail services, long-term storage, we have a hygiene room that we use, as well as a weekly access to our clothing shelter or our clothing room where people can get new clothing. We like to take their clothing and wash it in the laundry room that we have, so we kind of trade off and have some clothing to be with. And so that's where people usually get started with. Then we try to hopefully envision then our outreach team who actually works within the shelter as well as out in the city to start connecting them with referral services. So once they get in the room, we're able to give them a meal, show them some comfort here. Hopefully with time they become comfortable and we start looking to sort of grow out what they can offer.
How do people find out about you?
Yeah.
Use your services?
So certainly within the community and the city, a lot of folks just know to come to us. When people are not too familiar, we go through with our outreach team. We've reached about 1,000 people last year. We literally just have a van and we try to find encampments in known areas where people reside. And we try to let them know, bring like fresh food, warm drinks, let them know, hey, we're here, this is our address. The big thing is trying to figure out transportation. So we usually give them bus passes. But that outreach team is kind of critical to bring the community members in. And then just a lot of folks are just familiar with outreach is a big piece for how we're trying to reach out over 1,000 people a year, serve 5,000 in the shelter. From there, we try to reach that into our services. Something that's recently changed, kind of addressed briefly at the beginning, is behavioral health used to be a huge driver for us. And the reason with that, frankly, is Medicaid. A lot of our clients are eligible for Medicaid, they're enrolled, and we just start in terms of providing services. We've had a lot of changes with our new CEO in November. We're actually trying to shift more towards housing. That's something that we're just trying in terms of how much of our caseload is. It's a lot more focused on housing and behavioral health, in part because clients tell us that's a need that they have. But certainly if there's ever behavioral health needs, we can talk more about that. But when it comes to housing, we try to pretty much cover the continuum that someone might need if they're in a situation in housing. We do transitional living, we do rapid housing, which is typically the hotel vouchers that they offer in the city, all the way to permanent supportive housing, which is Hope Village, which is 42 permanent units for people who can stay there. Choose. When it comes to behavioral health, the big stuff that we really try to do is assign our clients a case, whether it be through the CRT program or the ACT program. What that really is, we get our clients assigned a caseworker to help them get driver's licenses, help them figure out applications, get to appointments. That wraparound in terms of individual therapy, medication management with the nurses is really big, provision of medical services currently. What's really cool is we have this program called PSR, Psychosocial Rehabilitation. That's essentially a program that we utilize social and medical care in a group setting. So 5 to 6 individuals will plan their monthly meals, go to events. That is a way to kind of reintegrate themselves into social settings, which is actually a big thing that clients mentioned is a huge problem. Just feeling comfortable going to a job interview, going to a doctor's office, that takes a little help. Another thing that we really have that I really like is Dismiss House. We're trying to expand the service, but this is a 6-month reintegration program for individuals leaving corrections. So individuals who might be in prison, there might be a number of barriers for them trying to get back into the community. This 6-month opportunity gives them housing, transportation, and medical services while they're trying to reintegrate. The big thing that we want to try to do with Dismiss House is it's men only. We want to expand that to include women and families. So that's kind of like my. And so if you wanted to go to the next slide.
What's RRH?
What's that?
RRH.
Oh, yes, so rapid rehousing. Rapid rehousing is going to be essentially hotel vouchers that we use with the city. Those can be a little bit dynamic. Sometimes we have a lot, sometimes they're not offering many, but that is the one that if someone needs to come and say, I need a place to stay tonight, that's the program we would utilize.
I know. Hopefully read the right arrow here.
Perfect.
Nope.
Oh, there you go. And so I'm asking the Home Village is actually one of our newer programs. It's something we're really proud of. Opened up in late 2022. It's one of the first of its kind. We have 42 units for supportive housing within the area. If you know where our day shelter is, it's pretty much behind those trees back there. It's right next door to our space. And what's really great about it is it utilizes not only the community case management services I mentioned, but we utilize designed architecture that was supposed to be trauma informed. So once people move in, you can actually sense them. Where? So our shelter is located off of 3rd and Mountain. And then once you go a little bit north up 3rd, which is the wrong way on the road, but if you go a little bit traffic's encouraged. So those units have been open now for about a year. And what I mentioned before is there's no term, there's no lease, there's no after 2 years we deem you healed and you have to leave. Folks have been there since it's opened, and we have 42 units. The unfortunate reality is the waiting list has grown to about a year. So I think something that you probably heard in a number of different settings is we just need more units, we need more resources, and ultimately we hope to have that. So if we had 10 of these, I think is what we would do to hopefully match the need in the city. But that shows you really where we're at. Oh, sorry, yeah, next slide. Yeah.
You know, I heard from New Day, and I think, you know, there's all these different entities.
That's right.
And how do you track? I don't want people not to get services, but what if I went to your place one day and then the next place, you know, how do you provide continuous support?
Absolutely.
So they progress and whatever place they need.
That's a great question. So internally, we certainly have a way of tracking individuals that we can report the numbers that we have from the meal served. What we then have is beyond that Albuquerque Coalition to End Homelessness. You can actually check out their website. They have a really great resource for how they track data. And through that coalition is how we meet with those agencies regularly to discuss that exact continuum. It can be something as simple as having a resource card that our caseworkers can then say, we offer A, B, and C. New Day then offers D, E, F, and then, you know, healthcare for homeless, then A's, you know, all the way through. And so it can be something as informal as a referral. Then we can actually start collaborating on programs. So like Albuquerque Healthcare for Homeless, we have what's called a memorandum of understanding. Essentially, we would partner with them for dental care. We don't offer any dentistry, but they do. So when we have a client that needs that, we actually have a memorandum that sends them there once we get them enrolled, and then we get on. So we try informal, formal, but to be frank with you, people get kind of lost in the cracks. Someone can just not tell us. They just kind of go to one, and they go for a few weeks, then we come back. We try to track, but it's an issue.
So I have a question, because I'm not sure which place I've seen on Third. There's, I drive Third once a week to go to an appointment. And there's always an area where there's so many people walking in the middle of the street or in camp. Is this your location?
That's where we be.
Okay, because I'm always so worried that I'm going to hit someone because they just step in front of you and they're not physically or and a lot of times they're not mentally well. And so what is happening right now on the street where they're encamped, waiting? I don't know if they're waiting for the next meal or waiting to see someone, but is there any set of counselors that are outside working with that block or two, or just you know, you're scared. I'm not scared that I'll be hurt. I'm scared that I'll hurt someone in my car.
Our shelter is open from 7 to 3, so once those happen, the gates will open. Beyond that, what happens is unfortunately, the city of Albuquerque will call police services. So unless they actually can come into our property, which we can then start working with it, with our behavioral health officers located in the shelter, they unfortunately would then probably be encountered by a police unit, a fire unit, and so they unfortunately wouldn't be seeking services. They'd probably be, a police call. And in those situations, we really can't provide much assistance when they're within our shelter. We can try to provide those wraparound services and referrals, but outside, it's actually unfortunately commonplace too. What they'll do is they'll bring in a couple of units and a garbage truck, and they'll just start throwing out in cans.
Is that they go about 1:30 or so?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, yeah, it just like breaks your heart. I find myself saying prayers all the way while I'm driving. And on the street, and, it's just, the need is so fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's another one, I think, the place up where I bought my new car. Next door, they had some kind of soup kitchen or something. And if you go through there at 5 o'clock, roughly, it's just a mob sleep. There's probably 60 people. A lot of them are on the sidewalks, but a lot of them are on the street too. It just gets very intense.
Trauma informed housing, explain that, I guess.
If you want to go maybe 2 slides, you'll see something that says trauma informed, and that will be a nice little place. So essentially, our architecture firm trying to consider individuals who may need assistance with just feeling comfortable being inside. We offer a community tour every month, the second Wednesday, and we can actually show you all around. And one of the things that's great, yeah. And so one of the things that we have outside of the whole village is a small little patio space for individuals who maybe they're accepted, they're allowed to move in, have a room, but they're not ready to be inside yet. They're actually able to use a patio within the secured grounds where their tent and kind of transition in. That kind of design architecture was created with someone in mind that maybe not have been intended at the shelter, which was actually like a mechanic shop when it was first built. It was intended to be a mechanic shop. So another way that this was intended to have trauma-informed design is there's not a lot of places where you can have sort of like a pillar that hides somewhere or a particular corner where someone, all of that was considered for someone to make sure they don't feel triggered or in some way on sort of that alert mode. And so a lot of those designs, when you walk in, you'll start sensing that. Even things down to the lighting that's chosen, all of those considerations were made. If you ever come by our office or our shelter, the shelter feels very much so like a mechanic shop. When you walk in after we do our tour into this space, it just feels very quiet, very peaceful. And I think all of that wasn't intended. And so if you just want to, when you're going through these slides, there's just going to be photos at the end of the units. So if you just want to poke around those, it kind of just shows you what the units inside of Hope Village would look like. So I kind of mentioned that folks can stay there as long as they want. There's really no determination as to that. And then if a few more, you'll kind of see there's that nice little design. That's Chuck. He's been there pretty much since it's opened. He's one of our senior case management specialists. He's great. One of our favorites for folks when we do our tour. And if you go a little bit more to see the photos, that's what it looks like in the unit. If you ever do come and join us for the tour, we can usually show you downstairs. There's a little reading area, computer lab, that psychosocial rehabilitation has a clubhouse that I could show you. This park I'm not be able to show you just because that's where folks live, but this is just gives you an idea of some of the housing units, and they're all fully furnished. So once folks get applied and entered in, much better to go. And so all this was done with local construction, a local architecture firm. So really proud of trying to do this all with local mix. And that's a good overview of the programs that we offer. The other thing that we discuss, obviously, is we have volunteer opportunities. Over at our day shelter, we always have a need Monday through Friday for anyone who wants to lend a hand. whether it's serving food, handing out clothing. We always welcome folks in the community to come lend us a hand. If there's any groups who might be interested, we also like doing service projects. Last week, we had a law firm painting inside of the shelter. The next day, we had this really interesting group of colleges from Oklahoma. They came and pretty much had to put all of it back because everything was painted and then needed to be rearranged. So if you all ever have ideas or want to have a day just to work in the community, you can find a fun project for you all. I have unfortunately the slide. So if you wanted that last slide, and I can obviously reach out to you and get you all that. That's really what I have here today. I want to thank you all for your time. Stand for questions. Yes.
We always think about how either an agency will help someone who has mental issues, whether they also have a drinking problem, they won't help. That drinking problem, they have a mental issue, they won't help them. Is there any group that's trying just to say, okay, maybe that's because where the funding comes from, that they say, no, we can't take you, but are there any groups that are trying to say, hey, if you have a mental problem, a drinking problem, come here, we'll take care of it?
I think you're absolutely right. That is programmatic. And it definitely I've had some interesting debates with folks. There are programs that absolutely say if you're using, you cannot receive our services, you can't stay here. That's not what we do here. Hope Village, we try our best to work with people as they come. Fortunately, people have been found to be using, that has led to them having to leave, but ultimately, we try to promote people as they stand. In that situation, I think that has been limiting, particularly what you're talking about programs like the city and the state and other requirements have to mandate those kinds of things. So when programs take that money, they have to oblige those rules. We didn't have those agreements when they came into place, and that's really why we're having that freedom. But we get pushback. We hear from community members that say that's what they like. And it becomes more of a debate at that time. For programmatic purposes, we don't.
So is there any supervision once someone is in a room? I mean, is there like a dorm check or in college where someone goes to make sure that the facility is still in good shape?
Nothing routine like an RA. The neighbors and tenants complain. Certainly there will be discussions. All of these folks usually have case management services. So a caseworker will be checking with them just as part of their continuum of care, but it's not like an RA doing checks in the hall.
To make sure someone's on drugs and having that's the accountants are not in danger.
It's a part of the reality. We have to make sure we have things like what to do if a weapon is found, what to do if there's an agitated client. We do have to take these folks where we find them. They may not be ready to really have that discourse. So we do have all those protocols in check. We have safety protocols, but we try not to that be the focus and decision. We just have to be prepared for those.
They had an interesting, if people came in with weapons, they asked them, said there's a locker right here, put them in there and you're welcome, but you can't be walking around with it.
Yeah, exactly. We have protocols in the shelter for that, and I've been working there for about a year. I would say maybe 2 or 3 times we've had to go into actual lockdown. So it does happen, but thankfully it's not so much of my day-to-day life that I come here really warn you all of it. It's just a known thing when we're dealing with people. That's what I got before I got in.
Number of clients.
We have seen, so last year or 2 years ago, we served about over 5,000, and then we got to about 4,900. So there was a small dip. We typically see about 72 to 75% male population. If there are women, there may be small children. That number is probably less than 3%. So the demographics usually have been shifting towards a bit of a downward model. But in terms of anything, in terms of trends, I don't think anything has really popped up to mind.
Do y'all take that positive sign or something? Not reaching.
I think that certainly we try our best to consider outreach. Given the transient nature of folks, we really try to get them in the known spots, but we know that we're missing. We like to think that there has been more assertive funding by the city in terms of trying to design and remodel the old hotels. This is the most immediate thing they've been doing lately, integrating that into low income housing. And then from there, our housing programs have been coordinating with the landlord, sort of that conversation. I think there's been more funding to sort of answer your question directly towards more housing options, and I think that might be addressing it. But the need is still great, so I think we're still going to have those numbers where they are until we start seeing more.
That's the root cause of housing.
Oh, the root cause, I mean, I've seen income fund issues that show the wage disparity in the city. I've seen the housing issue, we've certainly point to drugs. I think that there's a lot of concurrent things that are going on. To say one root cause, I wouldn't be able to. I think you have to.
So, what are the sources of your funding? Federal or private?
That's a great question. And so I'd say about 19 to 21% is private foundation grants, citizen donations, private donations. That would take up a small kind of pie. 30% would be Medicaid, to be frank. It's a big driver. It's becoming a bigger driver. The Medicaid billable services. And then from there, we have our agreements with the city, the state, as well as federal funding. FEMA during the 2020, they released a great deal of funding. That's been a big one for us. And we're trying to really consider how we're going to phase that out as FEMA begins to phase out that funding. Yes.
You coordinate with ACS at all?
Yes, absolutely. One of our big coordinations is with the city. Our new CEO is really trying to push on that as well. We frankly had some bad blood with the mayor for a few years in our past leadership over some money. That's been smoothed out. Now they're really trying to re-engage that partnership again. So certainly ACS we do, and we hope to have more in a couple years.
Do you know if there, a lot of these people are from this area or from other areas? I mean,
It can really depend. We get a lot of folks from across the country. What's a great piece of information that I mentioned with the Coalition to End Homelessness, they provide a report that's called the PIT count, PIT. And from there, we pretty much try to do a survey of individuals. I think January 31st is the official day. It's across the nation. The department does it. Pretty much they include one of those questions is pretty much trying to get a sense of where everyone's from. You'll begin to see an interesting breakdown. A lot of folks are from Mexico, but we do get a lot of folks coming through the neighboring areas. Larger states like California are really kind of represented. So it's an interesting blend, but mostly New Mexico, but a good amount of the neighboring states.
You see snowbirds?
Man, snowbirds, I think they can deal with it here. Yeah. It's usually a temperature. I just moved from Phoenix, so I can understand their plight. It's adjustable.
Do you deal with migrant populations at all?
Yeah, no requirements. When folks come in, we pretty much just ask for some identifying way to name them. That is how we then enter the system. We don't have income, documentation, any sort of requirements. So presumably.
I shared it last week with about April and one of the things that I admire about us, they understand that not everybody is going to make it through their whole system. There's always going to be somebody who chooses to stay on the street. But what I also admired was that even though they're focusing on people who are unhoused, the services that they bring in also are available to low-income families in the area.
Definitely.
You know, and so I was wondering, do you have that kind of setup?
Definitely. We're welcome to the community. I could sign up and get a therapy service with folks who are on the second floor. They wouldn't ask me for my income. They would ask me, I mean, I guess they want me to sign up for Medicaid, but otherwise. It's a roundabout way. No, we don't say you have to be a client. You don't have to jump through any hoops. I can go and just start getting the process of being on the list and absolutely in the community. So anyone who would ever need it, even if they're not in what you would consider a client that we'd serve, if they're just here for a short spell, they can receive services.
And so I say I'm a homeless person, I come in and sign up, and then how do you find me?
They pretty much have to provide us with the contact to best reach them. We try to set up appointments so that they can keep that on them, so that, like I said, save the date. So even if, you don't have a way for us to reach, we have a mailbox service if you want to check your mail there. If you don't want to go through those routes, we'll just give you your save the date. You got to come back, because the one thing, it's like long-term storage. we'll keep your storage for years. You just have to come back once a month to check in with us. So we do put a little bit on their responsibility as well.
So I don't have to worry about dying anymore.
No.
Wonderful questions.
Do you find, help from like the religious community? Do they really support you in terms of like their missions, communities and stuff like that?
Yeah, I gave a little spiel at the end because absolutely, these organizations and the work you all do is a huge part of what we do. Pre-2020, from my understanding, is that was how we did a lot of meal provisions. We used to be open 7 days a week, offering a midday and evening meal. That was because of the faith-based organizations and because of just they're concerned about that. Post 2020, it's gone away. You know, 5 weeks for one meal, and so we're trying to get back into that. So certainly any sort of collaboration I'll do with you, we certainly welcome it. Currently, we have the Baker Society have been really instrumental in providing volunteer services. Local mosque has provided meals more regularly. So we certainly are trying to reopen up those conversations. It's just about the couple of groups we work with.
You provide Sunday services?
We don't have services, unfortunately, since we transitioned from St. Martin's to that. We kind of pivoted away from any sort of general service. Certainly, I think if we open on Sunday, we might have resources available just as we have that open to people coming on Sundays. But through Monday through Friday, you won't see very much of that.
If any of you have not noticed the Hope Down box down in the comments, it's always there. And I don't know, I go over every other month maybe. But sometimes there's a wealth of things in there, and sometimes it takes a while to fill the box. But I can tell you, Isaac is always so happy for anything you can buy. Clothing and food, and not so much clothing, but more household supplies, cleaning products, towels, washcloths. There is a list. I probably need to put some new ones in there, but there's a list stuck on the front of the box. What about hygiene products? Yes, food products, mops, laundry baskets. What you need to move into a new home, and all those things are so expensive now. I mean, cleaning products are insanely expensive.
Yeah, just to live that program up, Hope Found, they're kind of like the own little space that Isaac and we have caseworkers that do that. They are particularly focused on families. So it's a very vulnerable population dealing with younger kiddos, potentially older family members. They focus on the family centric. So definitely if you want to think about coming to the shelter, I mentioned 70 to 75% are male. We definitely would welcome things like winter clothing, pants, things that men would probably need at the shelter. If you're doing Hope Found, you may want to think more about family-centric things that you're all discussing. Moving kids, hygiene products, Isaac would love those.
Diapers, always that.
Well, we used to have this warehouse right across the street, and it was just a whole wall of diapers. Yes, that's nothing.
So we wanted to drop off stuff, where we can drop it off.
Yeah, so I work at the day shelter on the 3rd and Mountain one. If you ever want to come by, I'm on the 2nd floor, 7 to 3, Monday through Friday. If you go to our administrative center on 2nd Mountain, that's where we found is. You can probably find Isaac or Dawn, the caseworkers, and they're able to accept it there as well. So if you want to come by, the shelter, I can really appreciate it's a little bit difficult if you feel like there's a lot of people, a lot of traffic, you may not feel comfortable. The admin center is just a typical office space. You could come in and probably just have it dropped off with an office manager, and it'd be a little less back and forth if that's a concern.
Any other questions? Thank you, William.
Thank you all for your time.
Didn't. But you recorded all that. So I. So I have $100 against. I'd like to take a couple of weeks.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So,
Yes, she has my contact info, about the slides saved. Yes, yes.
I gotta buy an attachment.
Yes, I was gonna say. I'll go down to the basement and find him now.
This morning. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Great one. What about this one?
No, see, we have to unplug it to put the stick in,
Oh,
because they don't have enough
Oh.
ports,
it's only one port. You need one of those
because we got all this other stuff in.
four ports.
Yeah, right, yeah. So I talked to, Joe on the phone about that, and I guess I just go, that's fine, but
Yeah. Go to one of these cheap, old computer stores that used to exist.
Yeah,
There's
right.
A few of them left. They've got all that stuff.
so. Then I could use the mouse.
You got-
Then I would be.
How many? No one's talking Sunday after school. So all the Sundays in April,
Right.
how many in May? All of them or just half?
Doesn't matter.
So I need to know because it's like either I'll do 2 weeks or I'll do 1 week. So that's why I need to know.
Let me take a look at that. Because I haven't back calculated the summer class yet.
Their last gap. And I would. So.
Can you do the whole month?
So I can April and May.
Okay, fantastic. I'll send you an email. So you look at me as your student aid.
Okay.
And.
Be honest, you know, you want something printed out or anything like that. Just like, what I would do is I would like them that by Wednesday, so I can send it to staff here. Copy.
Well, that's like, how much.
But I would do.
So what I can do is I can just send you, here are the things that will be discussed.
Right.
But I said I haven't decided which Sundays they're gonna be. So I'll just send you,
That's in the Bible or something. I do have. that email you something.
Okay, all right. So then I'll just send you the list of topics.
Right.
And you can just, because I don't know how you publicize it. People go, oh, what are they?
Oh, no. So what I do is, something else I put. The top of it, and then I like. The other thing I'm gonna tell you now is there's this little like newsletter. Saying it would be at the tables, it would be a little story.
Okay.
I'll give you.
Clara is moving to South Carolina. When I said something to George, to Richard, I wasn't sure he was comprehensive. But this is new news, and Alex told me a bit ago, going to South Carolina. I can't imagine.
Yeah, she's been saying it.
She was in the hospital last week, so.
Oh, where's that?
So you're gonna send,
I'll send you the- and I'll give you the person. There's a thing called Messenger.
Okay.
Like Messenger, used to be a printed thing. And what it does is it just tells you what it means. In the congregation.
We're all in.
it's just that like I said, I don't know the order in which I'm gonna do, so that otherwise I would assign it on Sunday.
Yeah, so I really,
Yeah.
Also, I know, like, just have that.
I love these ads to tell you.
Okay, well, what I'll do is I'll just, now that I know it's both,
Oh, yeah.
all the Sundays in April, May, I'll do the same.
Okay.
And see if that's-
No, they will start that.
I've got a question on, you know, I should talk about what people's industry, jewels.
Uh-huh.
And we both, Steve Rhodes.
Oh, yeah, but.
Yeah, when we were. Red bicycle, we did that.
Anyway, so,
Drove it into a
so
sewer.
some of the people said, well, John,
Ended, well,
give them that paper.
All right. Like next week, what I thought was like.
It's okay.
Where, you know, they just let, so I thought we would do the quiz and then, you know, let's get it so that we can understand why. It means a lot more to people who read the Bible literally and don't. And then I would go into the different things. So it's like Adam is not in the Bible, even though the word river here, or Satan means life is not in the Bible. Jesus said, the hell is not in the Bible, although we say that in the Apostles' Creed, right?
Right.
God and Satan are battling down, a rapture. Trinity is not in the Bible, you know, and
So they probably. He's like, so it's a 3 summer class.
so maybe then I should do the Trinity as the last one. Okay?
That's up to you. I mean, changing. I pastor back in New Jersey. He actually went to Simon. He always said, John, you don't understand the truth. He used to interrogate the students.
That's why. Yeah. Not Virginia.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And all the streets.
Waiting for your information.
I tell people that
Google is.
that one block
We don't need.
across the street from them. It's unbelievable. You got the Jewish cemetery. You got the Riverside Church. And originally we had the Presbyterian.
Yeah, but they're gone.
Yeah, right. That's where I think Jesse graduated.
Yeah. Very nice. You don't. Inject yourself with more. Quantum computer. You ever heard of, what's his name, Michio?
Oh, the guy,
I think.
yeah, the guy at NYU.
Actually, CUNY.
His name, oh, okay, it's a different person than.
Well, it's pretty good. He's a, you know, he goes through the basics, the very basics of quantum stuff. And he's talking about the computers overall.
Okay,
Thank you, John.
you want, thank you.
He keeps-
I'll keep you in mind for next year.
But it's a pretty good. We'll see. About third way to it or something.
There's another person that writes quite well, is Green. GREENE,
Yeah. On quantum.
and he's at Columbia.
Yeah. Well, I've developed an interest in these computers.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have a clue how they do their thing, but he's starting to talk a little bit.
One of the problems they're having is, they make mistakes.
Yeah, right. That, he mentions that. Part of it is,
They're
there's
false.
error correction. you
Right,
know.
yeah, there isn't any. Well, there's somebody has a technique I read
Well,
a couple weeks
he
ago.
describes a technique using several qubits to.
Yeah, right.
To back up the one you're using or use a bunch of them. And see what the preponderance turns out to be, right? But, somebody was saying you need 1,000 cubits to do one, really, to make it.
Really?
And when you're dealing, and those are the computers that are gonna deal with the biggest of banking transactions, or, the most important stuff.
No,
They're not gonna, they're not personal computers, right?
no, these things are powerful enough for most of our daily needs.
Yeah, right.
Well, I sit here and I think about what we have now
Oh, yeah.
and what we had 40 years ago.
We were just talking about Britannica, Britannica versus Google.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about Britannica, there are great things about Google, don't get me
Oh,
wrong.
yeah.
But Britannica, you knew, had been
Here we are in
researched
church, and I
and
could do it. I could find out what the population of North Dakota is, or
Yeah,
whatever.
right. But
and most of that information is correct.
Yeah,
But you start getting into certain information,
Oh,
and
yeah.
people are putting stuff in there that isn't correct. And you knew when you looked in Britannica, it was correct.
Yeah.
You don't know it now. You
well,
have to, wait a
that's sort of true, but as John will tell you, when I hear the phrase all the time, I believe what the scientists say, and, what do they say? I didn't say damn anything,
forget it.
well, and what is written down in Britannica and what was written down in Britannica was only good for the time that it was written.
Right, exactly.
Next year they put out an edition that would change.
It never was good, but they thought it was at the time.
I don't know, that could be online. Britannica. I wouldn't be
Oh, yeah,
surprised.
there is one still.
Yeah.
Is it
I
updated
think
down
they're
there?
dying.
I don't know, I haven't posted it,
Yeah, I don't know.
because I end up using Wikipedia.
Well, there's,
Well, it's nice always about Wikipedia. People who write that stuff actually give you references and stuff.
right.
So, they can check that out. So, yeah, I mean, in the business of science, I remember I went to a meeting and it was an invited talk, and I talked about this measurement we had just made, and it's contrary to what everybody else published. And I get in the hallway, a good friend of mine from Columbia University says, "John, you know what the hell you're doing?" And another friend from the Naval Research says, "Oh, yes, he knows exactly what he's doing." So Jeff says, "Can I send a student out to work with you?" And we ended up publishing 2 papers out of that. But yeah, because when you go contrary,
Yeah.
and you go like,
You get a
where,
lot. You get a
where,
lot.
no, but where did I screw up? It's the other problem that you have to deal with.
In San Francisco, I used to maintain the floor that was the research floor, and this guy came out, against a whole bunch of people that were sequencing DNA.
Oh, yeah.
He was saying, "You guys are crap," basically. They don't know what they're talking about. They're missing huge chunks of things that are, so.
It's only
And
second.
he didn't get any pats on the back for it, I'll tell you.
Also because he was making people,
Yeah, well,
making people thought they were.
There you go, sequence.
not just that, he was messing up a lot of research, right? And if he
You
was
couldn't do
right,
it, you can't sequence the whole DNA, but you can do segments of it. I think it's so big.
well,
They were going, I haven't heard about this in years now. They're going to use DNA as a memory, like a computer memory.
it makes sense.
Yeah. And,
Something like or they're gonna use.
well, they said DNA. That's what the paper said.
Well,
And they did experiments to show it.
It is a great memory.
Yeah, right. But the question is, you don't hear anybody, it's not in, you might say it's being used.
Well, it's, I think,
Because
well,
solid state memory is so cheap now.
we're at the beginning,
So
yeah, it's true. But we're at the beginning, but God, that's a lot of memory.
Yeah.
One molecule, if you can manipulate, that's the problem. You've got the CRISPR. That's,
That would not do that. You have to probe each
yeah,
base, that's a base pair and everything else, but no, anyway. But it was it was an idea maybe 10 years ago, people were
pushing, and the quantum computer might make a lot of things possible that we haven't been able to do.
But I can tell you, the classified world is big in that business.
Is what?
Big in the quantum computing side
Oh,
and AI.
yeah,
Group I belong to Thursday morning, we talk, I'd say a third of the time we talk about AI.
Idiocy is what I call
Well,
it. Because
my little phone here has AI built into
so does my little phone.
it. You probably have
And
that
my
on.
little phone doesn't understand anything I'm saying.
we've been using it for a long time. Google's been pushing it into their search engine for a long time. That you're not talking.
I'm trying to
them like you do
download
with
this
chat.
file that was, from science a couple of months ago. And I had to do, with a Google group, Deep Thought, that's based in the UK. So,
DeepMind did it.
DeepMind, yeah, DeepMind, sorry. And,
Deep thoughts is what Dylan said.
right. But, yeah, so they looked at predicting weather, and they were pretty darn accurate over a short period of time. I think what I read a few years ago is it's hard to predict the weather beyond a certain point because it involves chaos theory.
Yeah, well, that's what it
So,
seems to be.
yeah.
The weather apps, all the weather apps are pretty good.
Yeah.
For a few days.
Yeah.
You know, but on that 10th day,
2 months,
and if you get the extra one that goes 15 days, they're usually wrong at that point.
Right, yeah.
Well, the weather people are looking at year-long
Yeah.
weather maps, but they're not accurate. And they
Yeah.
know it, but
That's-
they get some prediction.
That's this problem of chaos.
Yeah.
So,
You know,
and that people worked on that concept for years. Right?
well,
Einstein did.
if they figure that out, they'll figure out turbulent flow too.
You know what? They're gonna figure it out. It's
Well,
gonna
you
take
know,
time.
I don't know.
Fluidodynamics people are pretty good on turbulent flow. I mean, people at San Diego are pretty damn sharp.
So, well, yeah, they're better, you know.
But they have the computing power to do that.
Yeah, right.
Big, huge.
They don't want to come, so I tell you, that's what they keep, that's what this guy in this book keeps saying.
Yeah. Well, it's already in, Google uses. it.
Yeah, it's
They have their own.
they have what, 72 cubic.
Yeah, I don't know what the number is, yeah.
And,
They have a whole division.
I think the Chinese say they've got.
They got one in space.
100.
They got a quantum computer in space.
Really?
Yep.
Who the Chinese do?
I don't know what, how many qubits.
Yeah. It's you don't know what to believe.
See,
I was gonna say,
Just the word.
do they really?
It's hard enough to believe the Americans, but when
Yeah.
you hear it from a Chinese.
well, it was advertised. See, that's one of the things I worry about now because of my age. I'm running out of time.
Yeah, all right.
I'm running out of time. And books to read, I know what's coming down. I mean, astrophysics is just unbelievable.
What is the limit as T approaches infinity?
There is a point.
Even when it reaches 85, it's pretty bad.
Uncle Bill. This was his
Mr.
view.
Time.
Yeah. And I wonder how.
That's our uncle that put the man on the moon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was in NASA the whole time from Mariner forward.
Wow.
Well, he retired.
He must have a lot of good stories.
Oh,
It's not his classmate.
We're going to celebrate his birthday next month. It's 94.
94.
So there is a point, we used to talk about San Diego, point of infinity here in town. So, infinity, the parallel lines are straight, right?
Right.
But, so if you take Eubank and Montalban.
Were they running?
Yeah. So we used to call it, because way down by the base, they're parallel.
Is that what the name of that should be the name of that little shopping center?
Yeah, right, yeah.
No, right,
Yeah.
it should be infinity.
Yeah.
Point
I had
of infinity.
If you're using a camera, infinity is only a little bit beyond 20 feet.
Right, yeah.
And various different places, it's various different things.
And I've got to go home and work on Uncle Bill's birthday card, because I've got it
Oh,
done.
really?
Except I'm gonna tell him how many seconds old,
Oh, yeah.
because he always does that to us.
Does it?
And so I've got to sit down and figure out how many leap years there were, and there was one year that we got a few extra seconds during the year, and I gotta find that.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh. Huh.
it was probably.
Oh, yeah, they throw a little bit of correction.
Yeah.
Yeah, they throw.
So I've got to
8
find out about
seconds
the
in.
corrections.
When they find that fall, actually, in the earlier or something. They go to Stonehenge to really do the calibration.
You can't use magnetic fields.
They have done it at least twice in my life.
Oh.
I'm aware of.
I think Chaco Canyon does that too. They have some real interesting alignments in Chaco.
So I've got to go home and work on that.
I would just do the seconds and never mind the.
Yeah, but he might catch them.
He will catch it. I bet he will. I think he will, unless he slowed down a lot, which I don't think his brain has slowed down at all.
So he could, correct it for.
Yeah, actually, his kids tell a story where I guess there's a mariner hanging on the ceiling.
Yeah.
Smithsonian.
Uh-huh.
And
I was with them.
oh, were you?
Yes.
They got in early, hung a sign on it that said, "My dad made this," and they blindfolded him and took him.
Really?
It was like his birthday.
Really? Was it? Oh.
But I was with them. I was there
Yeah.
for his birthday that year, and they had this, there were arrows pointing down to him
Were they?
when they brought him in, and they took him on the subway, so he had no idea, where they were going. And they took him off the subway, and which is right there at the Smithsonian. They took him into, Space Museum.
Yeah.
And he's standing there, and everybody, we're all pointing to him as the sign is. And everybody's looking at him. But he used to do things like that with kids.
Really?
He was the uncle that we were at the picnic. He would have 6 kids on his shoulders.
Oh, really?
He used to walk around he was 15 when I was born. And when I was about a year old, I remember riding on his feet. He would stand on his hands, and he has size 13 shoes.
Oh.
And they'd put me on his feet. He'd walk around on his hands.
Really?
On his feet.
Wow. What a nice memory.
Yeah. Almost made it to the Olympics, but broke her wrist.
Really?
Right.
2 weeks after. Yeah. Whatever.
Well, talking about sports, I decided yesterday to watch Iowa play because I heard so much about Caitlin Clark. She's considered probably the best college basketball player, both for men and women. I could see why.
She's made more points than any.
Yep, she broke Pete Maravich, or what was his name, record, the number of points in 4 years, and she's still playing. She's phenomenal.
I don't think anybody broke Wilt's 100 points a game record. did.
No,
Not yet.
Yeah.
she may. She gets in the pro ball. But I could see why she's just so easy. She plays so easy compared to everybody else. Her passing skills.
She was just a born basketball. She
One of a
her
kind.
dad probably started her when she.
No, that's often the case.
Not the height.
Well, her dad probably played basketball in college or something.
We'd have to chase that, but yeah. But she is.
Tiger Woods on the Johnny Carson show, hitting balls in 4 years.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
But his son's not doing so.
Yeah.
Well, his son's had some obstacles.
Yeah.
There have been a couple
Yeah.
of
Major.
social breaks in the situation.
So is this the last weekend that Matthew has his performance?
I think it was last week. Is it, is he still doing it this week?
He,
That's
he,
his-
he talked about it. this
Oh, did
morning.
he?
Yeah,
So he's doing one.
he
this
said
afternoon?
because they had a small change in the second act or something, and then he got up there and he couldn't remember it, so, it's because the music comes up so fast, he said. So the other woman, where the lead is, Baker's wife, sang the part or something. That's pretty, intense. He does Friday night, Saturday night, and that day on Sunday. And he,
And he's been doing
have
it
you
for a
seen?
month.
Yeah,
Oh, it's the,
yeah, it's,
the life of a thespian, I suppose.
yeah,
I can't imagine doing a Broadway show, There's people that actually do that,
twice a day.
yeah. For years, for years.
They take a
Yeah,
few
they
days
get
off.
breaks.
They get,
Yeah,
Yeah,
they have understudies.
yeah. The understudies love it when they get a
Right.
chance.
So when Cookie and I went there, we go like, this doesn't look like a very good neighborhood. Just
Well,
off,
you're probably right.
you're right, well, it is, it's right off Central. Yeah,
It's right there where the uh, chief of police got in trouble.
yeah,
Actually. It's right there by Caps. Down the street.
Oh, okay. The theater,
yeah, Border's right on
oh, it's that one
fair grounds.
It's a door kicked.
Well, the door you walk through looks pretty empty. And there's only one way in and one way out.
So, yeah, really? At a theater? I'm surprised the,
Fire department.
you know, offers that.
Well, they have obviously emergency exits.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a big theater. So. We go to the theater, music and crowds operation. Because I was sick last week. I missed a great performance. A Scottish fiddler and a cellist.
Oh,
This is
sounds
the,
interesting.
it was the fifth time they've been, they just dominate. So, but anyway. That's interesting. You're a cook. So I had the starter, sourdough starter, and I didn't pay much attention to it for a couple of months. So I reactivated it and I made, but I didn't use it spent.
Just letting you know, there are donuts in the main office, so stop by there.
Okay, all right. Anyway, so it wasn't spent, so I made oatmeal pancakes with it. And I got sick as a thing. My stomach, I think I was making beer down there. Yeah, so last Saturday I made pecan waffles with the same starter. Same damn thing happened to me. I mean, I was stirring up. First I start burping like crazy and then stirring up and everything else, and passing gas. And I thought, I'm dumping this baby. But I don't understand, and it didn't bother my wife at all. It's driving me nuts figuring out. I didn't want to throw it out because I've had this starter for like 15 years.
Right, but
You need a quantum computer. to figure
I think it
that out.
mutated. That's what I said. This is mutated. It's something else.
You got some,
I was gonna say, you got a bug in it.
you got some
That's
other
infected
critter
white.
that
Yeah,
they're fighting it out in there.
yeah.
Two
He's
different
got a
critters.
better immune system for whatever bug got in it.
Or she doesn't have that bug that he has.
Yeah, right, yeah. But boy, I tell you, I felt like it was just, then 3 hours later, all of a sudden, I'm burping, I hear gurgling down here, and then I start burping, and everything else, and I go, what the hell? First time, that's not hard.
Yeah.
And then when it happened the second time, and this time I know it was spent. So it was properly used.
Well, you'll just have to get some more starter.
Yep, exactly. So I'll probably get one from
Started in-
Bosky Bakery said they would give some of theirs
Oh, will they?
You make bread.
occasionally.
Yeah.
I have a recipe I got from King Arthur years ago, an oatmeal bread. We like, because it makes good toast and stuff. So, Plenty of oatmeal. and everything.
I buy mine at Trader Joe's, quite frankly.
You know, the,
That started the bread.
Right.
the bread that you have, they have on the island? That's, has Trader Joe's name on it.
Right.
It's made by, a very good bakery in Santa Fe. Anyway, because I was in there one day and I said, oh, so where do you guys get your bread from? You know, because it's gotta be local, it can't be.
Huh?
But some of the bread that's over on the shelf, at least in the store I go to, is, sometimes you pick it up, it's still cold because it's frozen, but this isn't. Sage Bakery. Because I just picked up their raisin,
Okay, John. now we
raisin
know
walnut
what
bread the
strength
other
it
day.
is. It's time to go to church.
Yeah, I got to shut all this up. All right,
It's like we're talking to you.
yeah. Let's plug this baby in. And we do that. We can do this now. We can do this. We can do that.